Welcome to At the Table with D. Monique. Pull up a chair, sit down, relax, and let's chat.
Hello. Welcome back to At the Table with D. Monique. I'm your host, D. Monique, and our special guest today is motivational speaker Antoine Howlett. Hi, Antoine.
Oh, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time frame you're in, D. Monique. It's a blessing to be here, and it's a blessing to be on this platform.
Well, listen, I feel blessed to have you too, and welcome to the table. For those of you who are listening, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, on this podcast, we have real conversations with real people who are sharing real life stories that have impacted their lives or the lives of others. So I would like to welcome you to the table. If this is, your second or more time, welcome back to the table. And I would like to thank all of you for sharing, liking, and following this podcast. That really means a lot, and lets me know that you like and you appreciate the folks that are coming on here to talk to us and share their stories, because it kind of puts them in a vulnerable position for a moment to open up and share their stories to the world. So we thank them for that, and we thank you for coming to listen to the stories. So before we get into any conversation, Antoine, we always have snack time. All right, so this is one of my favorite parts of the podcast because I like snacks. I like talking about food. So, and then what's a good conversation without a snack, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to give the audience a moment just in case this is their first time or they forgot their snack. We're going to pause for a second, allow them to go get their snacks, and then come back to the podcast. So y'all pause, go get your snack and come back, okay?
Grab a snack and come back to the table.
All right, you should have your snack. And so before we begin, we're going to say a quick prayer and say our grace. So Antoine, if you would please bow your head with me, and those of you who are listening. So Heavenly Father, we thank you for this food that we're about to receive. We ask that you allow it to bring nourishment to our bodies. And Father God, we also thank you for this time of fellowship with Antoine. We ask that something that he is able to say today is able to impact someone's life in a positive way. And we just thank you for this and all other blessings in your son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So Antoine, you are our guest, and we do have table manners. So please share with us, what is your snack?
Oh, my snack is the Blue Diamond Bold Salt and Vinegar. Yeah, that's my go-to, especially when I'm on the road traveling and different things. That's my go-to. The big bag only.
You
Hard
know
to
what?
find.
So I know a lot of folks like salt and vinegar snacks. Like they like the salt and vinegar chips. Are you a salt and vinegar chip fan?
Not the chips.
Uh-huh.
The chips could be sometimes, but with these, I like to snack here and there on the go, and the
Mm-hmm.
salt and vinegars is hitting on a different level. So it's like, all right, I found the smaller one, and I said,
Uh-huh.
okay, I can't find them everywhere. So when I run into the big bag, I got to get the big bag.
Yeah. Do you find yourself like buying a couple of those big bags just so you'll have them? Or
Not yet. Not
uh-huh.
yet. The way the economy is going, I may have to.
Okay. Because the price is like that song, we keep rising to the top.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing your snack, and please feel free to enjoy your almonds while you are, chatting with us. I like the blue diamond almonds as well. There's a store, I don't know if you guys have Publix where you live, but Publix is a grocery store here in Georgia, and I can find like the little cans, and I just get like the regular roasted salted ones. But they are so good because you just throw it in your backpack or your purse, or if you're traveling by plane, you got to have snacks.
Yep.
So you throw those in your bag and you're good to go. But I'm going to tell you guys about my snack. This snack, I did not plan on having this one. I actually went to the store last night looking for a specific item, and they didn't have it. They were sold out, like they were out of stock. And I was like, oh man, what am I going to have for the podcast? And I was walking down the aisle and I saw this brand. It's called Good Pop, and it is a dairy free ice cream. And I was like, okay, I like ice cream. So I am going to have this as my snack, but it's also going to be a review. And I'll be honest, I really didn't look at the ingredients last night, but just looking at them now, I would say that they're pretty good ingredients. And Antoine, I don't know if you know this, but like I'm one of those people that have decided not to eat any animals or any animal byproducts.
Oh, vegan.
So, yeah, I go by the title of vegan, but I think I'm gonna change my title because
Yeah.
sometimes vegan can be a little intimidating to some people. So maybe I'll just say I don't know.
You eat what you like.
I eat what I like. I am who I say I am. If I
Yeah.
wasn't, then why would I say I am
Yep.
in the paper? All right. So here it is. It looks pretty good. So let's try this out. It's good. The shell is crunchy. The ice cream is smooth. I would say this is a win. I wish I had one of those little sound buttons that went, yeah, because that's definitely the response to this.
What do you give it? 1 to 10. 1 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 9.5.
Oh, there you go. That
And
set
the
the
only
standard.
reason I like the crunch, but I wish there were a few pecans
Ah,
on here. Like that would definitely take it to the top. Yeah. But this is good. So I'm going to sit that to the side so we can get this conversation started. It's good.
yeah.
It's really good. Okay. So let me just tell you guys about our guest today. We're both going to discover him together because I met him in a group that I'm in. So I was reading his profile and I was like, there's a story here. This guy has a good story. And so we're going to have a conversation with him to learn a little bit more about him. But I just want to tell you that he went from being a prison inmate to a motivational speaker and an entrepreneur. And if you guys know anyone who has been in prison and released, you know that it is not always easy for those folks to get a job. And so the fact that not only is he self-employed, he created his own employment, but he's out and he's helping others. So I'm so happy to have him here today. And again, welcome to the table, Antoine. Thank you for being here.
It's truly a blessing. Like I said earlier, it's always an honor to provide value on just different platforms that's giving other people access. So it's a blessing that you're willing to give people access as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I want to know, first of all, what'd you do today before you got on this podcast? What were you doing?
I went fishing with my son earlier. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I went fishing with my son. I've been trying to get into more outdoor activities as I'm doing different things. And when I'm home, it's like, all right, let's spend time with the family. Take him and the wife out fishing. Didn't catch anything, but we just like, yeah, we just like spending time out there, just getting into the water and just doing different things.
Okay. Well, hey, I think that's good because a lot of times folks aren't getting outside the house anymore, right?
Yeah, that's
Everybody's
true.
like cooped up. And I think the pandemic had a bit of an influence with that. Folks start to maybe just find comfort and safety in their homes. So I'm glad that you guys got out of the house. Can you tell me where you from?
So I was born in Brooklyn, New York City. Current,
Brooklyn.
yeah, currently residing in Eastern Pennsylvania, closer to the Philly, Allentown area, around that area. And so
Okay.
I'm a Pennsylvania resident now.
So why'd you move?
When I was younger, right? So I'm 34 years old. When I was around like 16 years old,
Hmm.
growing up in New York City, Queens, New York, it was rough for me in high school. So I was one of those kids that literally, I think they told me that I missed 90 days out of 120. So,
Whoa.
yeah. And once my mother found that out, she was like, listen, you need to get out of the city. And she made the decision when I was younger to leave New York City, mainly because the environment was it was just rough and rough. And I was going down the wrong route. So she
Hmm.
made the decision to up and leave and come to a town called Whitehall, Pennsylvania. And that's where I went from being a kid that was considered in a GED program in New York on my way there to a student that ended up graduating high school out here in Pennsylvania. So it was definitely a blessing to exit the environment, mainly because I was like a sponge. I always speak to at-risk youth now, and I tell them, listen, every environment has a requirement. When I was that age, that environment required me to be different, hang around, crowds that would end up with me in the long run in trouble. So my
Yeah.
mother made that move to Pennsylvania, and I never looked back. And I always tell her, thank you for considering that.
Yeah. That was a sacrifice of love from on your
Mhm.
mom's part. So, let me ask you. So, your mom moved, relocated because of your issues in school. Do you have siblings? Did they have to
Yes.
relocate as well?
Yeah, I have an older brother, and he had to relocate with us. We're 4 years apart, so it wasn't
Hmm.
really hard for him to transition. I'm the youngest, so it was more of me feeling like, man, I'm having to leave my friends. I'm having to leave what the norm is, what everything that I know that I thought I knew at that age. So that was a hard
Hmm.
adjustment for me on that end. But him, he
Oh,
was more than willing to leave that environment because I was kind of the younger one who wanted to be outside more, but around the
hmm.
wrong things more as well.
Okay. Yeah. So he saw it as a benefit to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So outside of school, how would you describe your life as a youth?
For me, it was real different. So I grew up without my father in my life. So roughly around the age of 7, my mom made a real good decision. She was pretty much tired of my father drinking, being abusive, and she
Hmm.
was like, you know what? I'm better off alone than dealing with this type of relationship. So
Hmm.
she made the great decision of leaving that relationship. But at that young of an age, I was still looking for a father figure. I was looking for kind of like a role model in my life to show me any type of direction to go in. It was some type of support that I was searching for. And I remember being told, like, hey, you know what? I'm coming around. I'll be there soon to pick up you and your brother. And I'd go run up to the door because we lived in a basement. I'd run up to the door and put my ears by it, thinking that, hey, I hear his car coming. It may be him. And then I get a call 30 minutes later, like, no, I'm not coming. Or I wouldn't even get the call at all. So as that kept happening once, twice, 3 times a week, eventually I ended up losing hope. And I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
This person that says, hey, they're going to be around in my life, be around as directing me, even though they're separated, man, he's just full of lies. So let me look out on the streets for that. So at a young age, what I would do is personally, my mom worked hard to double shifts at times. She would work in her insurance company, and then I think she was selling like Amway and different things.
Hmm.
And I remember as she left, I'd go sneak out. I'd hang out with the kids on the block. I'd hang out with
Hmm.
some of the gang members because I felt like, hey, they just like me. Their fathers ain't around. This is a normal thing to do. So that was
Hmm.
my childhood. It was real pretty rough, seeing a lot of different things in the streets of New York and kind of gave me a tough skin, but it set me up for a different reality that most 7 year olders and just kids in general shouldn't have to deal with, shouldn't have to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry that that was your experience because for kids, if you tell a kid something, they do not forget, right?
Yeah.
And it's like your little heart just breaks over and over again when someone tells you they're going to do something and they don't follow through.
Hmm.
And I think it leads kids to be mistrusting of folks.
Yeah, absolutely. It
Yeah.
leads to pretty much, if I can't trust you, I'm better off trusting somebody else.
Mhm.
And one thing I speak when I talk to fathers, I just tell them, listen, keep your word and be there as much as possible.
Mhm.
If you know you're not gonna be there, don't say that you're going to be there. Like it's
Yeah.
better to keep your word and be honest rather than have that son or daughter lose hope. Because once they lose hope, it carries with them to an older age where they become hopeless in society. They become hopeless around their partner.
Mhm. I agree. I definitely agree. Where was your brother during this time? Was he in the house while you were sneaking out? Did he know
Oh
that you
yeah,
were sneaking out?
my brother is 4 years older than me,
Mhm.
and he knew most of the time. But there's some type of, I guess it's not a saying, but it's just like, hey, I can't control this person. He would tell me like, hey, don't do it. But at some point,
Mhm.
if someone's saying stop doing it, and you get a kid that was like me who would just not listen at all, it's like
Mhm.
his words didn't really hold value to me because I was like, you know what, this is fun. You want to just stay in the house all day? No, I want to go out and have fun on the block.
Mhm. Okay. So, when you were around these guys, you did you actually witness them selling drugs or
Oh
doing
yeah,
illegal activities?
that's what I was around for a long time, and I didn't look at it as doing anything wrong because from what I was taught, that was how you were supposed to make money.
Okay.
Before my mother split from my dad, I remember my earliest childhood memory was hanging out with him on the corner as they were rolling dices, and him telling me, "Hey, this is what the real men do. This is what real men do."
Mm.
So I thought at a young age, hey,
Mhm.
there's people that's working, but there's also people out here that's selling drugs, making money.
Yeah.
And it seems if you're outside making money, you got wads of cash on you. So seeing that at a young age, I thought, okay, this is the first route to go before you even apply to a job. See how good you can do at this.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like, okay, your father showed it to you. The people that you trust on the block, they're showing it to you. So in your mind as a child, this is just what it is. It's the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, share with us like a good memory. I mean, I know probably at that age going outside to hang out was a good memory, but share with us like what's a really good memory you remember as a child?
I would say one good memory was my grandmother just keeping like the Bible by her side, like keeping faith. Like for some reason, even in the midst of doing this, I remember at some time frame, my mom was like, "Listen, you're gonna go to church with your grandmother."
Uh-huh.
And we'd go. She was a Christian. We'd go into church with her, and that was like the balance of like sort of giving me hope back at a young age. It was like, you know
Mhm.
what? Even though you're out there doing some crazy stuff at your age, your grandmother has a foundation. I always wanted to know that connection between her and a creator. Like, where was it from? Like, she was just this type of person that it was just like you're like a whole being in itself. Like everything you do is just amazing. So at a young age, having a grandmother who is in the church just gave me some type of faith, like into a higher being where I knew like, hey, I was being taken care of. I don't know by what, I don't know by who, but there's something protecting me.
Wow. That's I'm glad that you had your grandmother. That was a great example. Um, because even if your mom was busy going to work, she made sure that you had some spiritual guidance and you were able to do that with going to church with your grandmother. Did you ever get involved in any church activities with your grandmother?
Oh no, it was very a short time frame that we were in the church, but it was truly memorable. But it was a
Mm-hmm.
short time frame where we didn't get to do much. We went to the semi church events and things like that, but it wasn't on something where before 16 we didn't do much of it.
Okay. Um, I want to get back to asking you questions, but your shirt is just standing out to me. So your shirt, it looks like a father holding the hand of a child.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
as well as your hat. Can you like tell us
yeah.
about this really quick?
That's that's the brand Howlett and Associates. That's actually me and my son when he was, I think, around 1 years old. And we had this amazing picture, and I decided, hey, we're gonna trademark it and run it into our brand. And this Howlett and Associates, that's the motto of it. That's the motto of what I'm speaking for, is to be a holding hand for anyone, because this person up here doesn't have to be a father. This can be a brother. This could be a woman. This could be anybody that's like, hey, I'm willing to walk you through this.
No, nice. I love it. It's just standing out, and I'm sure when you're out in public, people probably ask you about that all the time. It's it's a simple design, but there's a lot of meaning there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So you were missing a lot of days in school, which is why your mom relocated you. Did you not like going to school?
One thing with me is I started probably with school. School was kind of an escape for me. So, as growing up in an at-risk community, I was around drugs, like I said, very young age, introduced to marijuana, smoking, and drinking at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
The school that I went to a school called Springfield Gardens in Queens, New York City. And it was different from a lot of high schools around that time. So when I walked into school in the ninth grade in the high school, there was level 3 security coming in. I'm talking metal detectors. You put in your bags in the X-ray machine. You're getting frisked, and there was 32 armed police officers in the school every single day. So for me, it was like school kind of felt like going into the airport. And you
Mm-hmm.
got drugs, you got gangs in there and different things. And it was like, hey, you know what? I kind of feel like a threat being in school at times. So it's better for me
Mm-hmm.
to just cut and hang out with my friends, we chill on the block, or we chill and go smoke or whatever, to avoid having to deal with this thing called education. So it wasn't that I didn't like school. It was just the
Mm-hmm.
environment was something that made me feel like, hey, you got to look over your shoulders in here still.
Yeah. So it's almost like you felt like school was more dangerous than being out with your friends.
Yeah, at some points I did feel that way. At some
Mm-hmm.
points I was just like, hey, you know what? It is what it is. But
Mm-hmm.
no school should have that type of feeling going in, especially in these communities. It's like you're feeling like an airport once you're going into school. It should not be that way.
Yeah, I mean, just going through the airport, I mean, though it's supposed to be a safe environment, it does give you some discomfort because
Hmm.
when you get there, it's like they are already they don't trust you, right? So
Yeah,
there's already a level of distrust. And I understand, we understand why, because of terrorists and all of that, because
yeah,
September 11th definitely changed how uh flight operations happen, but it's almost like there's a mistrust there. And then when you're going through the gate, the guards are looking at you. If your bag goes off, they're like, come over here to the side. You know what I mean? Like there's a bit of aggression
yeah,
there. And I guess maybe they have to come across as firm so that if you are someone who is trying to threaten the security of everybody else around you, they have to put up this front, like we're gonna get you, we're gonna
yeah.
handle you. So I can only imagine how that feels as a child, especially if you're going from like middle school to high school. Like elementary and middle school, it's all flowers and butterflies. You're happy, you're hugging teachers, right? But then when you leave that environment, you go to high school and you see metal detectors and police officers. I'm thinking probably drug dogs are there, right?
Yeah, it was pretty rough. And I always say this: it's I understood why it was happening. I
Mm-hmm.
understood there's kids coming into the school that were in gangs, kids selling drugs, different things like that. I understand why it's that way, but you also have to get the perspective of the student who's not doing that. So if
Right.
they're going into class and they're like, man, I know I don't have anything on me, but what about this person next to me? Could
Mm-hmm.
they just snap and just do something, or like are they selling this, or like what's going on?
Yeah.
So I always look at it in both perspectives and say you're kind of creating a limitation for one and the other. So
Mm-hmm.
mentally, okay, I'm focusing on school, I'm focusing on reading, but at the same time I'm like, hey, let me look behind my back every 30 seconds just in case, because
Yeah.
they're arguing behind me. I don't know if this person got through with the weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can only imagine how that feels, and that still goes on now. I can only imagine
Yeah.
how that feels for students on a daily basis. Um, so, did you get involved with selling drugs? I know you said you smoke marijuana. Did you get involved with selling drugs?
Yeah, I got involved with it as a source of income,
Mm-hmm.
and mainly because it was like, hey, if I have to purchase something, how am I going to get any type of money? And
Mm-hmm.
at my age growing up, it wasn't really like the summer job talk wasn't really happening. I was probably 13 years old, 12 years old, so it wasn't like, hey, summer job. I would shovel the neighborhood during the snow just to make some money here and there, but most of the money that I ever seen, the most of it was from drug dealers. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
see it from younger kids, and I'm like, man, if this kid could pull an extra 200 in a day, I mean, what could I do?
What were you doing with the money?
Buying clothes, food, pointless stuff.
Yeah, things that at that time seemed
Yeah.
so
Th-
important.
Yeah, things at that time that were appealing to me. Like in my book,
Mm-hmm.
Marketing Mentality, I say it's amazing how at some point you realize in certain areas, even down the roads from certain schools, they'd have cigarette postings on corner bodegas right across from the school. So what does that put into that child's mind? At my age, I was like, hey, you got these Jordans? Or no, you can't afford them, or my mom can't afford them. Hey, I'm gonna find a way to go get this sneaker.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna segue for just a second. Do you like comedy?
Oh yeah, I love comedy.
Okay. So there's this comedian. I love him. His name is Ali Sadiq,
Yeah.
and he has that special called The Domino Effect. Have you watched that?
No.
Okay. Um, watch it because he talks about, I don't want to give the whole thing away since you've never seen it, but he talks about how a material item led him into selling drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. So check out Ali Sadiq, Domino Effect. I think
Got
you
to.
will enjoy it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Um, so like I said, you did spend time in prison. Can you tell us, what led to you going to prison? Because we know you graduated from high school, right? So your mom moved you away. You graduated from high school. What happened at the high school?
After high school, it was a bit of a kind of like a push for me. My mom was just like, "Listen, you graduated. I'm proud that you did it, but you're gonna have to work or something." Now, for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was like, okay, if I gotta work, I could try to apply to a job, or I can go back to selling some weed or whatever I'm selling.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this day like nothing. I was selling probably like a half a pound to somebody, and I was walking out of the neighborhood, and out of nowhere, I seen an officer coming down the road, and he doubles back and he screams out Howlett by my last name. Ironically, it was the same officer from the high school that I graduated in. He sees me walking in the middle of the night. Now he's like, what the heck is going on? So he calls me, and I start booking it because I'm like, man, I got some weed on me. I'm a little bit drunk. I'm just out. So as I ran, they ended up catching up with me, pulling me over, and he found the weed on me. So sent me right to the county jail, and that was like a day's process. But that day should have been the start for me to say, you know what, get out of this lifestyle. Like, you got caught with this, you could have got caught with something else. Get out of this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like nothing. I had to go to my mother and tell her, yeah, I got this weed charge. And she flipped. She's like, oh, you know what? You need to get your stuff together. Either you change now or you're going to get out the house. Like, you got to grow up. Like, you're out of
Right.
high school, you graduated, but clearly instantly after this, you're going back into this system. And I need you to develop yourself. You need to become a man. Now, for me, I said, okay, I'm gonna have to start paying some bills. I don't want her to, know that I was in the street. So I said, my whole life I had one foot in and one foot out. Whether it was moving out to Pennsylvania to graduate high school, yeah, I graduated, but I also had one foot in the streets. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I never gave it a shot to just have one foot into working. Like, people are saying, like, hey, get a 9 to 5. You know what? Let me see exactly what it feels like. So what I did was I said, you know what? We're gonna apply to these jobs. Had the marijuana charge in my background, ended up having a fine, went through a program for it. And I said, you know what, I'm going to apply to these jobs and see anybody that takes me. I ended up getting a call back from a grocery store, and it was like, yeah, we want you to stock the store up and stuff. So I was like, all right, you know what? I get a chance. I'm going to just work and stay out. To keep these both feet into the right thing.
Right.
And my first day in there changed everything because as I walked into that job, they had me at the register. They was like, okay, we're going to teach you how to stock, but we're going to show you the register as well. So as I'm working the register with the manager, I noticed the officer comes in. An officer comes in. And this is the same officer that ended up locking me up about 4 months ago. I'm like, oh, snap. It's him. He's local. Okay, it's no problem. It's whatever. And the manager go says, hey, you know what? That usually happens when a shoplifter's here. So I'm gonna go to the back. I'm gonna have this person show you the rest of the register while I go talk with this officer. So I'm like, all right, here's what it is. So I'm learning the register. About an hour passes, and the officer walks out with a shoplifter, and the manager's behind him. I see the officer leave, and he gives me a glance, just walks out. And the manager walks down and he's like, Howlett, I need to talk to you. He's like, I don't know if this officer has anything against you, but he brought up to me that we should look into your background more. And as we did, we realized that we can't have you working here because that charge is still fresh. So we're gonna
Oh,
have to
wow.
have you leave. So at that moment, it was like, man, my first hour into this job, hour into an escape, it's taken away from me.
Mm-hmm.
So me at that time, I had to make a choice: going back into the streets or applying to some more jobs. And I decided, I was like, you know what? I tried. It doesn't work for me. Even my mother didn't even know what to say at that point. But it was just like, you know what? I give up. Like, I had no sense of resilience in me because it was like, you know what? I'm trying these things, but if this is what I got to face, hearing a no or hearing a yes and then hearing a no eventually, listen, I'll go back to selling drugs because you rarely ever going to hear a no doing that.
Yeah.
And I decided, you know what, we're gonna go back into the streets. We're gonna go full throttle. We're gonna sell this, that. We're gonna hang out. We're gonna club, do everything we can to survive because society clearly doesn't need you or want you in a 9 to 5. And that's where it went downhill because I started drinking more, smoking more, going back into that comfort zone that I knew since I was a younger child, losing hope.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, what happened is um, friends hanging around. Long story short, one thing led to another where friends was arguing over money. I'm there, and one ended up getting stabbed. Now
Oh.
during the time frame, I'm there, so me not breaking anything up. As cops arrived and we get arrested, they say, "Hey, you know you're going down for a conspiracy charge. You were there. You didn't stop anything. You're involved." And that was a moment where I was just like, man, you know, I need to make the right decisions. It's not about who I'm around, but it's my impact around them.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be the person that's like, you know what, this ain't right to do. Let's stop this. And a lot of people say like, oh, I was around the wrong people, and I believe we all are good people, but there's wrong situations that we should get each other out of.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat in that jail for 9 months. Now those 9 months for me was life changing because I knew like, hey, you're gonna get this charge. You could take a plea deal or you can go to trial. At the end of the day, you were there. There was a fight. You knew it was happening. You didn't do anything about it, and you played a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is the choice that you're gonna make? Are you gonna find some faith in yourself, or are you gonna be the same person coming out of here? So my sentencing was crazy because I remember my mom showing up, and I had about 7 months before I even met the judge before I got the 9 month sentence. As I met her, she was like, you know what? I haven't seen a mom here in a while, and you communicate well, but I feel like you need to get certain things together. And I left with a felony charge, right? That
Mm-hmm.
felony charge is still on me, but inside that jail cell, when I was there, I remember thinking, like, listen, every action has a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you do,
Absolutely.
yeah, everything you do, if you do it once a day, it's going to add up continuously. And
Mm-hmm.
over your childhood, you were doing this. Over your childhood, due to losing hope, you decided to go this path. What if I would have went the other path? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are
Right.
just flashbacks that I'm getting as I'm in that cell, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this. Let me change everything around. I was around murderers. I was around human traffickers. I was around everything in there because I was in a violent part of the jail, being that the crime was considered violent. So
Yeah.
seeing these people was like, whoa, that's not you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't you shouldn't be in this mix.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that really helped me was while I was incarcerated, before I got incarcerated, there was a correctional officer that I knew at this bar that I used to hang out and sell drugs at and things. And
Mm-hmm.
as I walked into that jail, he saw me the first day and he was like, Howlett, you do not belong here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you're gonna do, but you do not belong here. He said one thing to me. He was like, if you make it out of here, I need you to look up personal development. I need you to look up finding a mentor or something like that because believe me, this place is not where you want to be. And that always sat in my mind, and I was just like, you know what? You got to find yourself. You got to find something in you to use to get better on the outside. Yeah, you might leave with a felony, but it don't stop there.
Mm-hmm.
And being around those criminals in jails, they was telling me the same thing. Like, listen, this ain't for you. Like, you're a good person. You don't need to be in here.
Yeah.
So it was a real shift for me to say, you know what? It ends here. That 9 months, I lost a lot of time being there, but it saved me because it was like, yo, you could end up shot selling drugs. You could end up dead driving and drinking. You could end up in any type of situation just by this environment that you're choosing to be in, just by this type of lifestyle that you're choosing to live. So I had a 9 month sentence, ended up leaving with the felony charge of conspiracy to assault, and about 3 years parole from it.
Um, you know, you had your that officer that was there telling you that wasn't the environment for you. You had your fellow inmates who were telling you that, but your that officer could have just saw you and be like, dude, you don't need to be here. But he not only said that to you, but he said, this is what you need to do. You need to find a mentor and you need to look up personal development. And I'm a strong believer in sometimes, like this conversation, sometimes you just have to have a small conversation with someone that can change your life. And it sounds like by that guy telling you that, that really like solidify all that you have been thinking, all the other folks had been saying to you, and now you kind of have a little, not a little, you have a plan when you get out.
Yeah, and I always call it. I just had a speech with over 250 wardens, COs, and social workers. And I call it the seed planters. Like, you're able to plant seeds in people's minds. So it's all
Mm-hmm.
like one thing with me. Now I'm learning how to plant different things in the garden and all this. If it's the winter time and I throw that seed in, it's not going to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's the springtime, depending on that plant, the ground's nurturing it. And I believe at that point was the best time for me to have a seed of positivity put into my brain. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe we all have the capabilities of planting seeds into others' minds. You just have to understand that you're powerful in doing that.
Yeah. Um, do you mind telling us why were you talking to those the wardens and the social workers?
Oh, I actually had an engagement about 3 weeks ago with the
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania Care Partnership, and this program is built on impacting and inspiring those workers about the fields that they're in. So my topic was, is there justice in the juvenile justice system?
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much giving them a brief of my life story, and also letting them know, like, hey, as a social worker, educator, warden, correctional officer, you have the ability to plant seeds in people's minds,
Mm-hmm.
especially our juveniles. You could be the correctional officer that says, you know what, a bat in the eye, I don't care what this kid is going through. Or you could be the one that says, you know what, hey, find this, find a mentor. Hey, you know what, follow this process, and I think things may get better for you. We all have the capability of planting seeds. So that engagement was built around me letting them know, like, hey, you're gifted as a seed planter.
Nice. I'm glad that you had an opportunity to speak with them because I think sometimes people in those situations, in that system, they may experience a lot of burnout. They may sometimes feel like they go in real gun ho, like, hey, I'm going to change the world, right? And then maybe because of systems or failed attempts, they kind of just go with it. They're like, I it don't matter what I say or do. This person's still going to do what they want to do. So then they stop caring.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm glad.
absolutely true. That is
Hmm.
definitely true. I believe at some point true leaders understand that they're capable of planting trees that they'll never be able to sit under. And it's like some of us plant that tree, plant that seed into the mind of others, and we want the fruits instantly. And the
Hmm.
fruits may happen as we're here, or it may happen after we're gone, after we pass. But
Hmm.
in knowing that you're capable of planting that seed, that's what I believe the true blessing is. Saying, hey, I was able to plant this seed and the fruits may blossom sometime. I may see them, I may not, but I know I was able to plant it.
Yeah. So when you got out, what did you do? Did you take the officer's advice right away and find a mentor and a personal development plan?
When as soon as I got out, the first
Hmm.
thing I did was I listened to YouTube videos on motivation. I remember
Hmm.
hearing a speaker named Jim Ron and Dr. Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher.
What up?
And
What up?
yeah, I was hearing E.T. and it was something about their message that was like, listen, you can go from anything and become great. Like, it doesn't matter where you come from. So what I did was I said, you know what? I'm used to listening to rap every single day, all day long. Sell this, do this, she's that, ops and all this. I'm used to listening to that. And I said,
Right.
you know, we're gonna cut this negative stuff out, and we're gonna listen to motivational speeches every single day for the next 60 days. And
Hmm.
that's what I did. I listened every single day. And I decided, you know what, we're gonna have to work because we don't want to go back into the situation. I
Hmm.
calculated and I reverse engineered my actions. I said, okay, the action of me giving up when that officer decided to say, hey, you know what, he looks familiar. That action led me into more trouble. So I
Hmm.
reverse engineered all of my situations that got me nowhere. And I said, okay, we're going to try something different. So I said, first thing we're going to do, we're going to try to work a 9 to 5. I applied to over 150 jobs. And I kept hearing, no, no, no. You got a felony? No, no, we're not willing to work with you. And something in me was like, man, it's so easy to go back. But something in me was like, you know what? Be resilient. You're able to get through this, but I want to see you push a little more. And I always remember hearing something in my mind saying, like, one more application. You never know. You never know. But you do know what happens when you give up. I already calculated. I knew what happened when I gave up. And I ended up applying to more and more jobs, not giving up. I got a call from a warehouse named ShopRite. And they were like, hey, we want you to become an order picker with the pallet jack and stack cases on a pallet and send them out to this truck and it's going to get loaded up and things like that. And I was just like, I'll take it. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
$13 an hour. Listen, I'll take it. Because I knew in my 24-hour time frame, if I spent 5 hours on the block and I made $300 to $500, I still had that thing on my shoulder that said, you got to watch your back.
Mm-hmm.
And if I decided to work a 10-hour day in the warehouse or a 12-hour, 14-hour day, I ain't going to have to watch my back like that. But I'm going to be real tired when I get home. So the devil has very little room to entertain me with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I took the job. I was like, you know what? We're going to do it. In that job, it was a blessing because they were at this point where they was like, hey, we'll give you unlimited overtime. We just need the workforce. And I said, you know what? I'm going to work it. Literally 6 months to a year into that job, a mentor of mine by the name of Tony Silver, he was a union representative there. And he said, you know what? I like how you move. I like how you communicate. I want you to become a union representative for over 300 warehouse employees. And I was like,
Wow.
really? You want me to represent them? What does that consist of? He was like, so we'll teach you things about the company. We'll teach you how to negotiate union contracts and different things as well. So I was like, you know what? I'm up for it. I decided to take that position, which led me out of the case picking position, but gave me more authority and more leverage to learn distribution itself and business
Mm-hmm.
itself. So in the midst of that, I'm negotiating union contracts, sitting at board meetings. Now, mind you, this is the person who was just in a cell like a couple
Right.
years ago. So from going there, I'm sitting in these offices and I'm like, whoa, like anything is possible if you put your mind through it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
in the midst of this, my wife was in the process of having my son Chase, and the same union tells me, "Hey, we got an opportunity where we're willing to give you 2 years of college completely free, and if you want to take it, you can take it. If you don't, you don't. It's okay." So me, I looked at it and I said, "Okay, a 2 year degree, I could space it out into Doodle 4, or I can
Mm-hmm.
say, you know what, let me get this 2 year degree." And I decided, baby on the way, let me go for the 2 year degree full time. So I'd go to college full time and work full time, all just to offer a different change for those in my generation who didn't see that. I was the second in my generation to graduate college and first but not last to start businesses. So for me, it was like, okay, this is how we set the standard. You apply a little bit of pressure and you get better at what you're doing. So that job, that 9 to 5, that exit from prison was a blessing because I became more resilient.
Man, you just said a lot of things that were awesome. One, that in the beginning, you filled your mind with positivity. You were listening to motivational speakers, right? And I think that's really important for folks to think about what it is that you are feeding into your mind and your soul on a daily basis. Of course, all of us, we like good music, not good music, but music with a beat, However, if you listen to music that's not really like feeding your soul on a daily basis, or if you're watching the television shows that's all about drama and fighting people, that's what you become. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Even as an adult, you become these things that you are constantly feeding into yourself. So if one, you made the change, you say, you know what, I'm going to stick with this. I don't care. I can get 100 no's, I'm still going to apply to these jobs. I'm still going to feed my soul. You got to the job. You were determined, not for them, but for yourself. Somebody saw something in you and said, hey, we want you to come and represent us. We want you to come and represent for all of your employees, for fellow employees. And then they say, hey, let's send you to school. I mean, you just got like blessings after blessings. So you were blessed because of the decisions that you made.
Yeah, and I also tell people it's just one thing is resources and
Mm-hmm.
reacting.
Mm-hmm.
And some people look at it as like, man, you got this opportunity. It's not the opportunity, it's just I knew how to react to that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much resources around us, but how are we reacting to these resources? If the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity came and I said no, I wouldn't be able to say, hey, I'm the second in my generation to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about just reacting to the resources around us and understanding like, hey, it could level you up or it could be something that's not of you if you make this choice or not.
You know, I find that a lot of people who live in northern states, y'all have a lot of benefits. Like, it's like there's so many programs all around, and people know about them. Like sometimes when I'm watching like court shows and there's like folks from the north, I'm like, dang, how do they know about this? And the reason people know about it is because the area is saturated with,
Yep.
these programs. And so I think, first, I think it's awesome that it's available, and I hope that more people will take advantage of those programs, because if you don't use something after a while, folks will feel like, you know what, nobody's using it. Let's do something else with this funding. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how did you, okay, so you went, you got your 2-year degree. Did that then lead you to becoming an entrepreneur, or did that lead you to becoming a motivational speaker? Like, how did those things happen?
So I ended up getting a 2-year degree in marketing, business
Mm-hmm.
management.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, there was something in me that said, hey, you can't work for a marketing firm with this background.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely having that felony, or you may be able to, but it's going to be a little bit hard of a push.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could work on marketing my business, my future business, or helping entrepreneurs, first generation ones, learn to market theirs. So I decided in the midst of working, I was like, you know what? I want to jump into any business. So I started reselling sneakers online. And what
Uh-huh.
I would do is I'd go to Goodwill's, I'd pick up a pair of sneakers for $8, and I'd clean them up and resell them on eBay for $150. And it would sell. They would continuously sell. And I knew, okay, from marketing, this brand works with this type of race or
Mm-hmm.
this identity. So I knew
Mm-hmm.
for a quick glance, I was like, okay, we love Jordans. African Americans, we love Jordans. We love us some fresh pair of Nikes, right? Air Force Ones. I knew it.
Right, right.
And I said, okay, if we can find Jordans at $8 and clean them up, let's see how fast they sell pre-owned and see if it'll work. And it ended up working. I ended up selling more and more and more. And then I said, you know what? Brooks are good running sneakers. Some people
Yes,
love
they
Brooks.
are.
And
Mm-hmm.
I ended up finding those $7 and reselling them for $60. So I said, okay, this business works because clearly there's a market for it. So once
Mm-hmm.
I found that market, I just went into it. I just said, okay, we're gonna buy more inventory from the 9 to 5 that we're working. The extra money we have, we're gonna put some into this. And now that business has been operating for about 3 to 4 years, and it's amazing because I'm able to turn what's considered as trash into someone's valuable purchase eventually. And it's just off that idea of, hey, dirt to go, dirt to go. And came from the
Yeah.
same hustle that I had as a younger adult. It was like, okay, we could buy something for the low, sell it for a middle price.
Mm-hmm.
And in starting that business, it was just like, hey, you know what? Let's teach others how to do this. Let's teach others how to jump into selling things on eBay, Mercari, StockX, different websites where it could be a sneaker, it could be a clothing. I've gotten to the point where I purchased a cookie mustard jar for $1, and
Mm-hmm.
it sold for $100 in less than 3 days.
Wow.
And yeah, there's a market for there's a market for video games, there's a market for board games, every single thing you can think of there's a market for. It's just being
Mm-hmm.
that seller who can buy for a lower price. So in the midst of this, I said, you know what? This business is doing well. Let me get to a point where I want to go back to my story, go back to who I really am, because in reselling you're making money,
Mm-hmm.
and that's good. But I always felt at a young age that my story was something special, that not just for me but for others. And I decided to join a Next Level Speakers Academy about 2 to 3 years ago. Took money
Mm-hmm.
from sneaker business, and I said, hey, this guy named Jeremy Anderson, he's been
Mm-hmm.
mentored by ET. Let me see what he could bring me to the table. How can I turn this pain into a purpose? And that
Yeah.
academy has helped me in so many ways just level up my message and actually produce income out of it, to the point where, okay, I started the Howlett and Associates business, where we speak to students and educators all around the world about the ability to turn obstacles into opportunities. So it's truly a blessing that workforce, that 9 to 5, I used it and I ended up being who I am today.
So, were you able to leave the 9 to 5
Yeah.
job? How long into selling sneakers were you able to leave?
Well, I left I would say in about, I worked at that 9 to 5 for about 6 years. I started the sneaker business my 5th year in. So I would say
Okay.
roughly around that time frame, I decided to take what they consider the leap. And
Mm-hmm.
I was in the midst of like, hey, listen, I'm going to start any business that comes to mind. I did the
Mm-hmm.
trucking, took money, used it for trucking, started a trucking business. That business didn't do too well. It did good in the beginning, but with rates and the markets, it was something that wasn't really for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned so much in business that way. That's why when I speak, it's primarily geared to first generation entrepreneurs. Like, hey, try something. If it's different and if you feel like it's not you, at least the man who tries or the woman who tries knows more than a person who never tried at all. The experience is different for a person who said, hey, I did this. Whether it
Mm-hmm.
worked or not, you did it.
Yeah. So, are you now like a full-time motivational speaker?
Yes, I speak and I do the reselling online and I consult.
Nice. Um, I'm familiar with Jeremy Anderson. Matter of fact, they have training. I'm in Georgia. They have training in Atlanta. I think it's like once a month. It seems like now
Yeah.
that I hear about it, and that's one thing I've considered going there to learn. And I listen to their podcast every once in a while because I just heard about it, and when their podcast opens, they talk about the success of the speakers, and
Yeah, it's
so
definitely an amazing academy, and they just give you so much value, and they pave the way for you. They show
mhm,
you, hey, this is the steps that you want to take. This is how you build your story. This is how you write the contract. This is who you call to get engagements, to book engagements. So that's one
mhm,
thing that I value about the academy, because you're getting speakers that's running $20,000 single engagements, and you get some that's just doing $100 engagements, and they're
mhm.
still. I look at it as not the number, it's what you're doing. You still out there
Right,
crushing it. Like you're being paid to share your value, like your story. Like that's a blessing.
right, and we all have a story.
Yep, we all definitely do.
Yeah. Wow. So who I know you say you speak to first generation entrepreneurs. Are they your target audience when you're speaking? Or do you have a different target audience?
My target audience is individuals have given who have developed that title of an at-risk youth at any point of their life and are
Mm-hmm.
wanting to become entrepreneurs. Those who are like, hey, you know what, I dealt with this at my childhood and I could do this. I could do anything I want. I can become a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Those are primarily my targets where I show them like, hey, I was resilient. I was able to come from this environment and turn my pain around. Like if I'm able to do this, imagine what you can do.
Yeah. So do you say you consult. So once you go and you speak to these individuals, are you then now taking them under your wings like a mentor? Is that part of your consulting business?
I've done mentorships right now where I mentor certain at-risk youth, like in a group,
Mm-hmm.
and we talk about something I consider the LEAP, right? Now, the LEAP program that I have is leadership, experience, accountability, and purpose. And I primarily speak to kids about that and saying, like, hey, this is how you develop leadership. This is
Mm-hmm.
how you can use your experience. This is how you develop a core being accountable. This is how you can develop moving with a purpose in life. And
Mm-hmm.
that program itself has been going on for about 6, 7 months, and it's been amazing because we get kids from Brooklyn, we get kids from Atlanta, different communities where it's like, yo, I don't believe I can do anything, but if I'm around kids that's having that same mindset, maybe I can do a little bit better. Maybe we can
Mm-hmm.
get better. And on the aspect of business consulting, it's mainly of showing people, hey, this is how you can structure your business. This
Mm-hmm.
will happen in business, ups and downs, but how can you balance that? Are you having the habit of saying, hey, I got my first 20,000 a month. Let me go blow it. Well, you're
No.
going to be back in the same boat. How do we
Right.
build the core habits of saying, okay, what mental habits do I need to go get over before I start this business? Because
Mm-hmm.
if I'm spending this money on this instead of this in business, it won't last for long.
Not at all. Without sharing the name of any of your mentors, can like you just tell us um, some success they've been able to achieve during this, the 6 months that they've been with you?
Oh, we've gotten kids to go through college. We've gotten young adults starting businesses. I got a mentee right now that's actually he started his hauling business where he's doing the trucking, and one other mentee is I think he's 18, just turned 18, and he's starting a recycling business where he's literally taking his grandfather's truck, turned that
Mm-hmm.
into an LLC, and now he's picking up trash in the neighborhood. He's going cleaning out homes and different things and producing some good income off of it to me to the point where I was like, man, I may have to consider this. And
Yeah.
and it's because if you think about it, whenever you're selling a home, right,
Mm-hmm.
there's some things that you need to get rid of. If
Mm-hmm.
you pay a big company, they're gonna charge you a lot. But you pay this guy, this younger kid with a truck, open truck, a couple $100, he can make multiple trips,
Mm-hmm.
and you're paying a good amount. And in his area, he's hitting it hard.
Yeah. And also, I think about not that we ever want anyone to get evicted, but when you think about like evictions,
Yeah,
um, because we live in a society now where if you do something wrong, like squat in somebody's house, you have rights. I don't know
yeah,
how.
yeah,
I don't know how that works. I mean, it's like you're rewarding bad behavior. But anyway, when you're in situations like that, you got to clear those spaces out, right? And so they
yep,
can call someone like that gentleman and get their house cleaned out. And you never know how that business can blossom for him because if he has some family members that can join in with them, just think about this. He's moving out refrigerators and stoves or old furniture, right? But then he can say, hey, if you need anybody to come in here and shampoo the carpets, clean sinks, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
he can add that on
And I gotta
to
give him a
as
shout
additional.
out. I gotta give him
Go
a shout
ahead.
out. His Valdez Hauling. That's the company name. He's hauling, and that's it. It's just literally getting to that point where, hey, I can get to this point of growing. I can get to this point of being the first in my generation to start something. And I always tell people, listen, don't focus on the number, focus on the impact. One thing that I learned in trucking, I had months where I'd hit a 25,000 a month in a box truck, and I was like, "Whoa, we doing it!" But mechanical issues had me at a point where I only had 2,000 for the month. So I knew, okay, this balance going up and down, this money thing, there's something about it that you don't got to get all fluffery about. You don't got to get so hyped about it because it's going to go up and down. What's the in between? How can you balance this thing? And that's where I learned entrepreneurship from a different level. It's like, okay, how much are you saving out of what you're making? Is it going towards clothing? Avoid that unless you're writing it off. But that's a whole different. The tax side is a whole different type of understanding. But I like to get people to understand the beginning processes of, okay, what's your spending habits? Okay, what is can my mentor calls it something, the financial thermostat. He says, okay, if I give you $1 million and I tell you to spend it in 10 hours, how will you do it? And I'm like, whoa, that's too much. I wouldn't know. He's like, well, you need to be prepared and you need to have this financial thermostat. He said, your limitation is in your mind that's keeping you over that point where you don't even know what to do with it. He says, me, I donate this to this. I put my family on a yacht here. I put this family there. And I'm like, whoa, now you're helping me break these mental barriers of like, okay,
Wow. I think that's a great point that you made, because a lot of times we will put up mental barriers. And since you know Jeremy and you know ET, I know you know Jamal. You know
oh
of
yeah,
Jamal
more
King.
killing it.
And he always says your level of success, let me make sure I get it right. Your level of exposure determines your level of success, right?
Yeah,
So, in order to break those mental barriers, you're going to have to set yourself around people who are successful and people who are working their way into be successful. And I know we all have different levels of success, but they always say to put yourself in the room with people who are a higher level than you. If you can be in a room and you're a little bit uncomfortable, that's probably a good thing. That
yep,
means there's a whole bunch of people around you that you can learn something from. Don't be the
absolutely.
smartest one in the room.
Yeah, that's true. I love Jamal's 5 pillars of success. Like it's
Yeah.
just being around people who, and one thing that I tell the younger adults that I speak to, and I'm always honest with them. I'm like, listen, my first mentor was YouTube. Before I took the trip to see Eric Thomas in Philadelphia, my mentor was YouTube. My mentor was a book. And I decided to read these books daily to get a different logistics on my life. And I tell them some people are accessible, and some people you don't have that much reach to get to them. But a book that they wrote can give you all the access that you need. So pick up that book and use it as a mentor. Go to it when you have those issues.
I don't think people utilize public libraries
No.
as much as they used to, because um, when you're saying that, people are probably thinking, well, man, depending on their financial situation, they may be thinking, well, how can I afford to go get a book and I am trying to make ends meet? Go to your public libraries.
Yeah.
Um, I had a period of time, I think for like 2, maybe 3 years, I worked for a public library in Savannah, where I'm from, and you will be amazed at the resources that are at your public libraries. So, go check out books. They have sections where there are books for motivational, a section for motivational books. So just go to your librarian, ask them, hey, can you tell me what section? And get a chair, sit down, and read the back of the covers or open the front of it, look at the foreword, see if this is something that may help you. If it doesn't strike, anything within you, put it back on the shelf where it's supposed to be, please.
Yeah.
And find the next book. You know what I mean? So there are always resources out there to help you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm at a point now where I got a lot of books. I read a lot, and
Hmm.
I actually use this app called Blinklist, where I get the first. It's like a 20-minute increment of the most important parts of a book, and I
Really?
listen to that every single day. And it's
Hmm.
so my mind is catching on to something new. I like to have a mindset of like, hey, I'm reading something new every single day, and I may not get the whole.
I'm about to download this as you Blinkless.
Yes, Blinkless. A good mentor of mine's gave me a link that actually gave me his subscription as well. But I was able to read, I think it was over 200 books in a year. And
Wow.
it was giving me the information where I'm like, hey, on my way to driving to this engagement, I'm listening to 20 minutes of this book on my mindset. Boom, I got some new gems. Or on my way to go drop off these sneakers to the post office. Hey, let me listen to this real quick. And it always keeps the mind refreshed because once you think you know everything, you don't know anything.
Yeah, exactly. Amen. That's all I can say is amen. Um, Take us through the course of your day. Like when you get up to the end of the day, like tell us what you're doing.
So typically, first thing I wake up, I give thanks to my creator, um, pray, give my wife a big hug and a kiss, give my son a big hug and a kiss. If the day goes towards an engagement of speaking, I'm prepping up. I'm drinking water, I'm getting the right liquids into me, and I'm going into a mental state where it's like, okay, you're about to deliver an impactful message, impact one person, whether the crowd's 300, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
100 students, whether it's 20. I always say there's a younger you in that crowd. What are you going to say to them? And
Mm-hmm.
I think about that message. And as I'm on my way to that venue, or if it's something that I'm flying over the states, I'm thinking about that. And I'm like, this is what you're here for. As I
Mm-hmm.
get through to the event, I'm pouring on that stage. I'm giving it all that I got. Because I know
Mm-hmm.
when I come back home to my family, that's my time of being like, I did what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
And my day usually revolves around that, giving those engagements, pouring into those students, those peers, those entrepreneurs, saying, hey, anything is
Mm-hmm.
possible because I'm here
Mm-hmm.
right now. And I value every single day, but my day consists of me being blessed in the moment. I try not to have the futuristic mindset so much because
Mm-hmm.
at a young age I had that. Okay, if I can't do this, I ain't going to be anywhere. And I learned to just,
Okay.
yeah, I learned to just be in the moment more. My day is based on the moment so much now that it gives me more sense of being.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. Have you been able to develop a relationship with your dad?
The relationship with my dad is a lot better than it was before. I
Mm-hmm.
would say we were at a point where it was no talking at all. You drunk, you drinking, you're facing alcohol abuse. I ain't got nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized was having a mentor. I have a mentor by the name of Dr. Charleston Gaines, and he focuses more on emotional intelligence. And in one of our conversations about 2 years ago, he was like, man, he's like, this person is just suffering from poison abuse. Like alcohol is a poison. Like if
Mm-hmm.
anything, he's having a sickness. So your perspective about him should change because you don't want to treat a sick person this way. Like if somebody's coughing, you ain't sitting there laughing at them.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought of it and I was like, yeah, you know what? My pop's alcohol abuse, that his rage, clearly it was when I was young, but it could have been before we were even born and
Mm-hmm.
before he even met my mother. So I learned that, okay, look at it from a distance and always say, hey, how you doing? I hope you're getting better. that's our conversations that we have now. And it's a blessing to have that perspective, because I had that wall up where it was like, you ain't do nothing. You made me lose hope at a young age, but that just creates a weight on my shoulder that it's like, man, I gotta keep carrying this around.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that forgiveness is key. For some
Yeah.
of us, it's very hard to forgive others, but
Mm-hmm.
at some point I realized I had to forgive myself in order to forgive him.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgave myself for putting so much on my shoulders and setting so much standards in my mind, so much hate against him. And I said, you know what? It's okay that you felt that way, but you don't got to live that way. We got to
Yeah.
separate the feelings to living. Like, because you feel some way don't mean you have to continuously live that way.
Yeah. That's a great point. So how old is your son?
3 years old. 3
Three.
years old.
Oh, that's a sweet age.
Yeah, he's fun.
Like,
He's like, I want to play golf. I'm like, okay, we golfing now.
yeah,
He's like, I want to
like,
play soccer. Okay, we soccer players now. I do anything he wants to do. If you see it on my
mhm.
posts and different things, I'm always doing something different, because my son is like, hey, I want to try this. And I'm like, all right, we're going to get everything we need to do this.
I think it's awesome that you are, when he says he wants to try something, that you go through with it, because kids are discovering the world. This is a big world and they don't know, right? And plus they're going to test out situations like let's see, if I ask mom for a cookie, she's going to say no. But if I go to dad, he's going to be like, how many cookies you want?
Yep.
So they're going to they're going to test out the world. And so I think it's good that you explore his curiosities, because you never know where that can take him. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Yeah. So how does your mom feel about, what you're doing now? Like, what does she say when she sees you? Uh,
She loves what I'm doing. She always has that fear in her mind, like, hey, well, are they paying? Are they doing this? Are you getting good money from this? And I'm like, Mom, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm good.
yeah.
I'm okay. And I realized too that a lot of us, the fears that we have are fears that's older than us. So
Mm-hmm.
fears from your parents can be passed down to you. That don't touch the stove because it's hot can be used as an excuse for everything. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I love my mom dearly, but she's never been in business. So
Yeah.
she wouldn't know the ups and downs of it. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand her fear of, hey, you sure you can do this for that long? Are you sure is everything okay? I get it. But some
Mm-hmm.
people's fears are older than you. I like to say, hey, I'm doing good, mom. And that's all you need to know. We good. Everything okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And tell us, so you met your wife when you were still at ShopRite.
Yeah, I actually met
Yeah.
her before that. I met
Uh-huh.
my wife before my incarceration, and we were just friends here, going back and forth. And
Uh-huh.
then after my incarceration, it was like she was like, "Listen, you need to get back to doing something right with your life." And I always listened. I'm a good listener. So before we decided to build a bond together, I remember some females in my life were like, "Hey, let's go hit up the club when you come home. Let's do this. Let's go party." And I'm like, "Man, this is a good person, but all she want to do is party. All she
Mm-hmm.
want to do is drink, and all she want to do is spend money on this." And my wife, which was my girlfriend at the time, she was like, "No, let's go find a job, keep filling out those applications." And
Mm-hmm.
as I did that working, she was like, "Hey, you know what? Let's get a house. Let's do this." And she's always the one that's like, "Hey, you want to start this business? All right, here, focus on this one. Keep going, keep going, keep going." So she's always been that backbone of the push of who I am today, because it's like, hey, I'm as strong as she is. She's as strong
Yeah.
as I am.
Sounds like she's been your cheerleader for
Oh
a
yeah.
long, long, long time.
Yup, cheerleader, coach. She the ones who tell,
Mentor.
yeah, mentor. She tells me like, listen, you went too far in this business. You need to slow down. Like she
Yeah.
will tell me.
Does she work with you in your business?
Yeah, she works with me in the speaking business and the
Hmm.
reselling business. It's been truly a blessing because she's willing to learn the aspects that she feel that she can be the most valuable in. And one thing that I've learned in entrepreneurship is some people have that idea of my partner has to be in my business. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have to be that way because your partner has their own purpose. And
Right.
you don't want to live someone else's purpose. You want to fulfill yours. So even before starting with this reselling business, I said, "Hey, what do you like to do?" She's like, "Hey, I like to package it up a nice way, put our stickers on it and things." And I was like, "All right, would you want to be willing? Are you willing to do that, or can I outsource
Yeah.
it?" She's like, "No, that's me." So I was like, "Okay, that's you then." But
Yeah.
I know my boundaries of like, hey, I don't want to give her this task that she's going to get stressed about
Mm-hmm.
because I leave
Uh,
that up to me.
I think it's cool that you guys can work together and then that you're able to utilize her strengths to add to the business. And I'm sure if one day if she comes and say, "You know what? I think that I can use my gifts and my talent in another area," you'll be like, "Okay, that's cool." Um th- do you guys have like a system written out
It depends for what type of business. So
in your business at all? Because like I'm just thinking out loud, and this may not be for you, but for anybody else, if you have a business and at some point the people in your business may want to move on to something. So if you have a standard operating procedures written out, like Miss Connie S. Fall says, uh, when that person leaves, you can bring somebody in, and that system will continue to work. So that's
yeah.
why I ask.
Oh yeah, definitely. One thing in speaking is I would have to send out emails and do the calls myself in the beginning so much. And there's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes right now where we have a down season where I'm like, okay, I'm not booking these engagements, let me make these calls.
Mm-hmm.
And we outsource it to someone else who's delegating that task, but there is a guideline of, hey, this is how you make these calls, or these are
Mm-hmm.
the emails that you're sending out. One thing about the Next Level Speakers Academy is they gave us the system to operate with. So it was something that I said, hey, this is what we can use.
Mm-hmm.
Babe, would you like this? Would you like to say this? And she's like, I don't really talk like that. Okay, well, we're gonna find a virtual assistant to do this, or we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna find an in-law that are like this task, and we'll pay her to do this. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a system-based thing. Systems make it so much easier, especially when people want to grow.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I've learned with podcasting. Like I said, I'm still new, and I might have said this in an episode before, but when I first started, I was sending like text messages or inbox messages or DMs to people. And I'm like, hey, I was going through this long explanation and say, hey, I want you to come on. And then they would say, well, what dates do you have available? Right. And I would send out an email or a message to them and maybe 10 other people, like, these are the dates that I have available. And then I'm like, oh my God, I hope they don't choose the date that somebody else. And I was just talking to a friend. I was like, listen, I need to get an online calendar because
Yeah,
this is kind of stressful. And you don't know, just utilizing an online calendar, a burden has been relieved. One, they can look at the dates and they can schedule whenever. If it's 12 o'clock at night, and they're like, oh, yeah, I said I was going to come on that podcast. They can go on the calendar, they can book themselves, and then, we go from there. So,
that's a blessing. That's a blessing, and it makes it
yeah,
much easier for you.
yeah. And just that little thing has helped me out so much. There's more I have to learn, but just that, you don't know.
And I
My
always
shoulders
say
feel.
one thing is to get used to asking questions. And for me, when I'm around different speakers, I ask them, how are you doing this in your business? A great friend of mine is by the name of Brad Butler. He's a international speaker, a part of the academy as well. I remember I went out to Syracuse to an event with him, and we were just chopping it up about the systems itself. And he said, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? you could actually do automated emails. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, schedule them out. And because schools themselves, they open up 8 in the morning.
Uh-huh.
And before I'd be up 8 something in the morning sending it. And I'm like, man, I got to get them before break. And he's like, no, send the email and just schedule it all for 8 o'clock. You got 100 emails, you can schedule all of these. And it
Yeah.
made things so much easier because I'm like, wow, I don't even got to be up to do this. I do it the day
Uh-huh.
before. I have someone delegate the task the day before, set the time frames. We're good.
Yeah. And I can only imagine how that has freed you up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. I don't know if iPhone people can do it because I have some friends who have iPhones and they've told me they can't, so I don't know if things have changed. But like I have an Android and there are times that I'm like, "Oh yeah, I need to message this person." I go in, I send them a text message, but I schedule it to go out at a certain time. And yes, I love it.
Nice.
Matter of fact, I'm sure you got a scheduled message.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Scheduled message from me. Um, but yeah, it definitely does help you because, if you have a task list, right? You're going down your task list. Well, you're like, oh, well, I need to do this and that. You schedule that message, that email or whatever, it's done. And when the person is supposed to receive it, they'll receive it.
Oh, wow. Listen, makes it easier.
Yeah. Um, what is the legacy that you want to leave on the world or in the world?
I would say the legacy I want to leave is a sign of never giving up and always
Hmm.
setting the standard. Never give up and settle for where you feel like you're hurting at or you feel like
Hmm.
there's pain in. You don't always have to be there and you can always get out of it. So leaving the legacy of leveling up, setting that standard, that's the legacy that I'd like to leave behind. The presence of don't give up too soon.
Yeah, I like that. I want you to just take a minute or so and talk to someone who might have recently been released from prison, or it might have been a while, and they are going through that same situation where you are sending out 100 applications and they're getting turned down and they feel hopeless. They feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just going to go back to the streets, or I'm going to get money however I can. Just talk to that person for just a moment.
So, in speaking to that person, I just like to let them know that it's a blessing to have the thought of optimism. It's a blessing to want to be different and say, hey, I'm sick and tired. It's okay to be sick and tired and say, I need difference in my life. But one thing is, faith the size of a mustard seed can move through mountains. And that faith in wanting something different, the mountain can be anything. The mountain can be 101 applications. The mountain can be 102. But I just
Hmm.
need you to push through and say, hey, I need one more, one more. One more day is all it takes of pushing through. And then something will pop. So you got to have resiliency in you to say the same risk that I took into that street, I need to take the same risk into my life. I need to take the
Hmm.
same risk and say, "Hey, I can do better." Because one thing is one thing that's always said is we can't bring this thing to the grave with us, but we can
Right.
actually bring a legacy with us. We can bring
Hmm.
the actions with us. We can bring the, hey, you remember that person who went through this trauma, went through the cell, went through prison, and they changed their life around based off of them just saying, I'm sick and tired of it. They didn't let
Hmm.
statistics get to them. They didn't let the environment get to them. And then the third thing they didn't let get to them was their mind. So
Yeah.
that's the message that I have to that individual that's coming out of that system on their way out of the system that just wants to stop it. It first starts in the mind. It's saying, hey, I'm sick and tired of this. I'm willing to gain everything if I leave this behind.
Nice. Thank you so much. Um, this has been a really great conversation.
Oh, it is.
Um, However, I do like to be respectful of folks' time. So we're going to wrap this up. But I will tell you, anytime you want to come back to the table and talk to us, you are always welcome.
Oh, definitely. It's a blessing. I
Yes.
definitely would love to come back and we could primarily talk about one of the businesses and get down to startups and different things like that. It's like I said, it's always a blessing to speak to individuals who's willing to give others access. I value that so much.
So if someone wants to get in contact with you, whether it's for entrepreneurship or to be a motivational speaker, how do they contact you?
You can contact me at Antoine Antoine Howlett HOWLETT.com, or you can actually contact me on Instagram at Antoine_Howlett. I'm over Facebook as well, TikTok, Antoine Howlett, first name, last name. But the best source to contact me is through my website, AntoineHowlett.com.
And then you also have an ebook.
Yes, I
Is
have a
that on?
Yes, that ebook, Marketing Mentality, I wrote it about 2 years ago. It's based on my journey through college and understanding the impact of marketing on a young mind. That ebook is on my website, AntoineHowlett.com as well.
Okay, good. So y'all reach out to Antoine if you need help with mentorship, marketing, whatever you think you may help you may be able to get from him, contact him.
I appreciate it.
To also thank you for listening to this conversation. And if you want to be a guest, if you have a story that you want to share that you think may impact someone's, or you just need to tell your story, okay? Contact me. My info is in the show notes. You can find me on Facebook at the table with Monique. You can find me on Instagram, hashtag at the table with Monique, or you can look up Monique podcast. If you have a snack suggestion or a topic suggestion, you can also send that to me. So some blue. You know what? I may have to try out your almonds. I'm not a big fan of salt and vinegar, but you know what? I could give it a try. I could give it a
Be
try. So
different. Be
y'all
different.
y'all look out for when I try out the salt and vinegar almonds. So again, thank you guys for listening. And one more thing, this podcast is now on YouTube. So if you guys are listening to this on like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, or whatever, you can also watch it on YouTube. So until next time, I want you guys to be blessed and peace.
Thank you for joining us today. Come back next Thursday for a new episode of At the Table with Monique podcast. Don't forget to bring a snack.